This is the Swedish outfit's furious 14th studio album, arriving February 10th via Nuclear Blast Records. Foregone consists of 12 tracks, clocks in at around 47 minutes, and is the, I'm assuming, much anticipated follow-up to 2019's The Mask LP. And this one, quick note at the top, produced by the one and only Howard Benson.
I saw that.
My Chemical Romance, etc., etc. Like, that should speak for itself at that point.
Mm-hmm.
My Chemical Romance, In Flames. Howard fucking Benson, bitch.
Weirdly, these bands kind of came up around the same time, or at the least maybe struck popularity around the same time.
So I am a first-time listener for first-time.
This is your first In Flames record for real?
Yeah.
This is exciting.
So I did a little like digging.
It's not the case for me, just FYI.
I was going to ask. I did some digging. I think this band still has 2 original members that date back to like 95.
Mm-hmm.
Bro,
it's impressive,
they've
right?
been around a while.
It's impressive.
They're coming up on a 30-year anniversry.
I'm not doing anything now that I was doing back in 1995, to be honest with you. Not a single thing. Ever since I stopped watching Pokemon last year. So this isn't my first time with In Flames. Their album, I believe it's called Come Clarity, holds a special place in my heart for being a very good early metalcore record, bro.
Pause.
What do you mean pause?
Pause.
What do you mean pause?
What year is this? What are we talking?
This is way back when.
It's like 4th album in, like 2002.
This is 2000s. This is 2000s.
Yeah.
This is discovering metalcore era me.
You and I have never had a conversation where I guess In Flames have come up, nor have you told me that an In Flames album holds a special place in your heart. You're so fake.
Yeah, no. This is around that era where I found bands like It Dies Today, Bleeding Through, Early Trivium, As I Lay Dying.
Right,
like this is when I like discovered metalcore. This is when metalcore. This is before they started fucking around with metalcore. You know what I mean? This is before we started getting like Attack songs and like Bring Me and Asking and stuff. This is when metalcore was a little bit more like metal. I get a little more like your dad's metalcore, you know what I mean?
Those neck holes turned into V's.
It's like a little bit boomercore, if I'm being honest with you. It's a little bit what this is. Which I fuck with to an extent. What I'm curious though is, what's it like to fucking hear an In Flames album for the first time in 2023? Is this what you expected? Is it? I mean, I guess you have zero fucking expectations for this. Like, you went in completely clean.
So no, I had expectations.
You had expectations for a band you'd never listened to before?
I think it was that I didn't expect to like it. Like, that was the basic expectation I had, where it's like, okay, In Flames has been around 20-some odd years. Like, I've never listened to this band, so like that definitely means they're not worthy of my attention, right? Like, that's like World Revolves Around Me.
Is this kind of how you felt about Anti-Flag a couple weeks ago?
Anti-Flag.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, no, exactly. And I honestly, it was kind of like a similar experience to that record, where like I walk away having finished Foregone and I'm like, hey, well, that was kind of neat. This band's not bad. I can see the talent. I can see why this band has stuck around this long. Like,
it's kind of funny to describe an album like as kind of neat and weirdly nail it so on the head, because that really does describe this album quite well. Like, I walked away from this and it's like, oh, this is like there's like rich instrumentals. It's like it's weirdly low key for a metal album. Like it's kind of like groovy, and I kind of find myself vibing out with it, and it's less of a headbanger than I expected.
It's actually kind of funny because like sometimes when Howard Benson's name is attached to it, I don't always look forward to how the production's going to come out. Like, I think he's sort of hit or miss.
It's crazy because when he hits, it's some of the greatest albums in history.
And I think that this album's, it leans closer to hitting, on Howard Benson's side. And you're right, like, it all kind of comes together in a really neat way. And, on the surface, like, I would close my eyes before and I would think, like, yeah, this is like Ozfest type of like throwback metal, like throwback, I guess nowadays, but
Ozfest
like traditional metal where maybe it won't resonate with me as much as I guess it turned out to, because yeah, you're right. Like this is interlaced with a lot of groove. I think the song like Bleeding Out is a good example.
Mm-hmm.
And then yeah, there's a ton of like melody. Like there's definitely like arena rock radio.
You know who it
type
reminds me
vibes
of very
to it.
closely of, but I feel like it's maybe a little bit of a chicken and egg situation where I think a lot of Bullet for My Valentine when I hear this band, but I'm confident that this would have come before that.
So I have a very similar example, and I think that the few OG fans of this band that we have who listen into the show might call us on it. But
What are you coming in with?
I
here?
listen to this and I'm like, yo, this is like if Black Veil Brides and Miss May I had a baby.
I think what you have there, and maybe what I have a little bit with Bullet, is a band like this quietly influencing a lot of these other acts
That's
that don't quite
exactly.
sound the same, but might take one or two things from an established band like this, who's so early in sort of like metalcore's comeuppance.
I think that's exactly it.
Or coming up of.
But
comeuppance is
but
bad, right?
additionally, I think that one of the things that kind of that kind of like appeals me about this band is that a lot of the bands that maybe they inspired a long time ago that are now trying to do their sound, this band is doing so much better. Like this is that new Parkway Drive album, but good.
That's an actually very strong and factual point.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, this is that, but like with actual creativity injected into it.
And I think it's also, it feels more authentic, whereas you come into a band like In Flames who have been doing this for like 25 odd years, and this is the style of music that they've essentially made their name on
over the years.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you hear them do it, it doesn't sound artificial in the same way when you see other bands sort of attempt to mimic it, you know, like how I felt about that Parkway Drive album last year, and you did as well. Which is to say that maybe it's not as easy as just flipping a switch, huh? Maybe you got to grind a little. Maybe you got to feel it. Maybe it takes time to establish that particular sound, and you can't just decide one day that that's the style of metalcore that you want to do, or you can, but it's not easy to nail it. And then you have somebody come along who's been doing it for 20 years, and they got to like Parkway Drive, sit down, let me show you how it's done real quick. You know what I mean?
I think you hit the nail.
This is a hysterical way of saying like an older band coming along and being like, let me teach you how it's done, son. You know what I mean? I will say that while I really enjoy like the overall tone of this, like I found it kind of like mellow and like relaxing, which I know is a really weird way to describe a metalcore album, but
it's actually really impressive what they do with the intro, because it really lets your guard down as to like what the entire album might end up becoming.
The intro ends up being one of my favorite parts of this whole record.
Yeah, and it's like it's a 2-minute instrumental, just really solid.
Right, it's just really beautiful, and I think it speaks directly. So the concept behind this album is essentially, what would your final words be? You know, we're all gonna die. What do you want to leave behind? What's the last thing you want to say? And like hearing like a melody like that intro, I think does a better job of speaking to that concept than any of the lyrics really did for me across this whole album.
Yeah, listen, I don't think that this...
I bring it up specifically on the back of how it was described, you know, into like what they were shooting for, that I felt kind of like the melodies and the overall tone really spoke to the concept of the record, but I think the lyrics kind of underwhelmed from that perspective.
And for me, this is an album filled with like a lot of examples where it's not even like an entire song is bad lyrically. It's like there's a song that'll have like a really killer line, and then the next 3 lines that follow are just really just boring rhyme scheme, boring descriptions, you know what I mean? Like, but like it's
not the poignancy that you kind of expect from like the press release.
Right.
Like I feel it, but I don't necessarily like textually it's not there. And another thing that maybe is worth pointing out is that while overall I kind of like easily fell into this record, it was difficult for me to really Like, I walked away from this album and I had no fucking idea what the singles were, and that can be an issue sometimes. Like you should know that one or two songs that were clearly the standouts that probably were used to promote this album. But when I finished with this, I was kind of like, not one or, that intro, ironically enough, but no other one or two song really jumped out to me. Like, overall, I felt the album was good, but there was no like exemplary track.
I don't think it was a single, and I did mention it earlier, but I did really groove with Bleeding Out, which was a groovier track. And there were certainly, I don't know if I can say anything surprisingly about this album, is that it's actually really, really catchy. And trust me, like, that can be a bad thing, because like I don't really vibe with the closing song on here. And like that chorus is an earworm in a bad way, in the sense of like you want it out of your head, but you can't really shake it. But there are a ton of other songs on here, like at least 3 or 4, where like that chorus comes and goes, but it stays right up in your head. And it's a really, I don't know, catchy overall thing.
I feel like in a sense, this band wins by playing the game by their rules, so that they don't put themselves up against other metalcore bands that I'm listening to from like a point of comparison.
Yeah.
So like when I listen to this In Flames album, what I end up getting is something different, and I really kind of ended up valuing that. And I didn't finish it and think to myself, well, it wasn't quite this, or it wasn't quite that, or I don't think it stands toe to toe with these other releases. I kind of went, okay, this is an In Flames album, and like this is interesting, and maybe there's value in me kind of dipping out from this band for like the last decade or so, in that I don't even have them as a point of comparison. Like, I can just kind of jump in and be like, okay, yeah, this is still kind of cool.
It is fun reviewing something when you don't really understand the perception of the band. Like, because for all I know, this band could be coming off of their, ask their fans, their quote unquote like worst album, or maybe even their best album. And so again, like you talk about like expectations, and for me, it's like only real expectations I had coming into it is I don't really know what to expect, or like maybe I won't like it. But
and my worst case scenario is that this muddles my nostalgia of what like I remembered this band being.
So in that same breath though, like I credit to the band, because I think that, at least for me personally, this does inspire a desire to revisit their older material.
Oh, I got good
and
news
I'm
for
not
you,
talking
you got,
like
you got
1
years
through
worth.
13, but like maybe like I'll kind of work my way back, right? And
I feel like this is where you would want to then go to the fans and be like, yo, hey, I checked out that new In Flames album. It wasn't bad.
True,
like, what am I missing
true.
out on? And they'll be like, oh, bro, you got to hear some Clarity from back in like 2003,
good?
bro.
Is it good?
That's what I'm saying. Exactly. Like you need to, this is like when you
Right.
start a TV show and you're like, I just want to watch like the important episodes. And they're like, yeah, you want to skip like, 130 through like
Right.
137.
Yeah,
like
the
it's pointless.
abridged
Right.
version.
Precisely. Yeah. It's like I'm picking up this anime, but I don't have 700 years, So that comes out this Friday. So go check that out.